Barny Orchards of Sandford Orchards, and Kingsley Ash from Thornborough Cider a little later on. But first of all...
You called him Barny Orchards?
Barny Orchards? Like Barney... Is he like the cidery Barney?
Barny Orchards of Sandford Butterfields.
You said Barny Orchard. What's his actual name?
I didn't say Barny Orchard. I actually said Barny Orchard.
Oh, you did.
You really did. Welcome to the Neutral Cider Hotel podcast. I'm your host, Martyn Goodwin-Sharman, along with Grant Hutchison, Gabe Cook, and producer Scott. Coming up a bit later on the show, we'll be discussing what I think is the most fundamentally crucial and actually rather exciting topic of taxes. With it,
Whoa there. Hold your horses.
Why?
What are you doing? Like, A, you're doing the intro. What's that all about? B, you've never enjoyed taxes. You've always been mocking of the tax.
No,
love.
I've always said I like tax. It's you two that didn't want to do a tax episode.
Oh, Martyn, you scoundrel. You're a scoundrel and a rogue, my friend. What is this heresy you're talking about? What's going on?
Fuck it then, you do it, mate. I'm not having it.
Ah, Jesus. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Neutral Cider Hotel podcast. I am your host, Gabe Cook, along with Martyn Goodwin-Sharman, Grant Hutchison, and producer Scott. Coming up a bit later on the show, we'll be discussing what I think is, and I really do think, is the most fundamentally crucial and actually really rather exciting topic of taxes. But first, there's one word to say to you, and that is... Wholesale!
You wait every year for that, I bet. Guarantee.
Once a year.
360 days a year.
360 odd? Well, it doesn't change that much. Like, it's 381 year, 360 the next.
Plus, you don't wait because you say it all the time. So
no, this is true. I do say it all the time. Come on, let's unleash from the cidery stable, the old mare, the horse of knowledge, everybody.
He died.
There we go.
Old horse of knowledge has been sleeping over Christmas. We thought it was a permanent sleep, but we managed to revive from its slumber. We have obviously talked about wholesale before, probably about this time last year, I suspect. But just as that brief reminder of what is wassail, well, certainly the orchard wassail is that celebration, the blessing of the oldest tree in the orchard, appealing for a bountiful harvest, making lots of noise in the orchard to scare away evil spirits, firing shotguns, and presenting the tree with cider-soaked bread, and appealing to Pomona, apple goddess, and other assorted deities to bring forth a bountiful harvest. Who's been to a wassail this year?
Do you know what? First one, I didn't go to it. Hannah and I went to the old bookshop in Bristol, and not exciting, but linked to it, we had cider by the glass. We had Pet Nat from Starved Crow. So obviously I've derailed it, but I'm just pretty pleased where cider's got to this point now. So I haven't gone to it.
I enjoy listening to wassail tunes on Spotify not from time to time, this time of year.
From this time to this time.
From this time to this time, from today until tomorrow. And there's a great compilation that you'll find called Wassail ! On Spotify. Some brilliant wassailing songs. It's quite Wicker Man, which I quite enjoy about it. But it's a way to enjoy it from a distance. Up here in Scotland, not much of a thing. I'll be honest. But sitting in trees and drinking, maybe. But
sitting in the tree.
Well, someone sits in the tree, right? Like a boy sits in the tree or something. Gabe, yeah. No,
Is that, yeah.
so
the Tom Tit is
What'd you call me?
hoisted. I'm calling you the Tom Tit. It is the smallest person in the congregation. Let's be fair, Martyn. That's good. Although producer Scott, I've got no idea how tall or short you are. How tall are you?
6'3".
6 million feet.
Oh. Even Barny wouldn't lie about his height like that, Scott.
Well, if he was producing 100 million gallons US,
100 million Questlove episodes, then
Scott, your height aside, because we know you lied now, it would have been just more normal if you hadn't lied. But have you ever been to a wassail? Do they have them in your neck of the woods, San Diego?
I honestly had never even heard of it until I started working with you guys on this podcast. I didn't know anything about it. Is it a British specific thing, or?
Well, it just so happens that I've been doing a little bit of research on that recently, so I can give you the categorical answer, producer Scott, which is that it does seem to be the orchard wassail, this orchard blessing ceremony that takes place on 12th night, which is the 6th of January, or the 17th of January if you celebrate Old 12E, which is what 12th night would have been in the Julian calendar. That was the old calendar before they changed to the Gregorian calendar, and we lost 11 days, and there were riots because people were really pissed off that they'd lost 11 days. Anyway, that's a whole other story. Basically, in and around
this is
January,
meant to be the fun section in the tax episode, by the way, Gabe.
This is fun. This is fun and informative. Fun-formative. And
Informative. He's made a word.
Of course, a portmanteau, if you will. And what I found was that basically it seems to be that it's something that is really, really exclusive to Britain. That, you know, parts of Europe have developed a big, strong sort of carnival culture associated with that midwinter Yuletide kind of thing. Some interesting dances and sort of wassail type thing happen in the Basque Country, but the idea and the concept of that orchard wassail is really something linked to British orcharding and cider making, but is now undertaken all over the world by cider makers and people who have orchards, because it's a nice, fun, celebratory thing to do.
okay?
Well,
All right,
we did it.
wassail done.
Wassail
Okay,
done.
now.
What's we gonna do now?
Well, let's say this, Gabe. What say you? What does it help the cider community to have those old traditions that are clearly old timey to us? I mean, we haven't gone to them, but you've been to them. Are they a good laugh? Are they? What's it like being in there?
For me, you know, the spirit, the essence of wassail is about community, about the local community and the cider community, people coming together and sharing good feeling and good vibes, and quite literally, maybe not in quite so COVID-y times, but you're actually sharing cider from a wassail bowl, which is normally, you know, a lovely turned wooden bowl specifically for pouring cider into, taking a sip and then passing it on to the next person. You say wassail, and in response, the person will say drink hail, and that goes back to Old English. That's over 1,000 years old. And so, you know, it is something that is deeply imbued with that sort of community element. So that's really what's important for me about cider. And to be able to carry around a flaming torch, that's always pretty good fun too.
We do that in Scotland.
Just for fun?
Just for fun.
Yeah, man. And cider out of bowls, but they don't have to be wooden. Plastic bowls are fine. Ceramic
This may
bowls.
be the driest joke I've ever heard. That was so good.
Well, there we go, Grant. I can't top that. So let's move on from the wassail. And now let's get on to the big subject of the hour. That's right. We're going deep on the fun-loving subject of tax. And now here at the Neutral Cider Hotel, it's time for our main feature. And as we said, I have managed, with much arm twisting, to dedicate the entirety of this bit to talking about tax. Cider tax specifically, otherwise known as duty. The reason why, we talk about this quite often on the show, because it does have like such a disproportionately large impact on the decision making of what cider makers do in terms of the alcohol content of their products, the carbonation, the packaging type sometimes, and cost and pricing. There are so many elements of which tax duty is the primary element. And we've talked a couple of times on the show about how there was this upcoming change or announcement to changes on tax cider taxation in the UK, certainly. And that announcement was made last autumn. And it has the potential, well, it's certainly going to introduce that there is sort of a massive revolutionary change to the way that cider is taxed, with potentially some significant benefits for some cider makers, certainly some smaller cider makers, but that might not necessarily be the case. To give sort of full insight, we've actually invited a couple of cider makers onto the show. You're going to be hearing from Barny Butterfield from Sandford Orchards, and we've also got Kingsley Ash from Thornborough Cider. But first of all, before we get into that, I thought it'd be worthwhile me doing a quick précis little overview of what these what these changes are for the benefit of you, dear listeners, if you're still here. Yeah, and for Martyn and Grant too. You might have some questions too.
Not Scott.
First of all, here we go. Cider at the moment in the UK is dutied in particular bands, so between 1.2 and 6.9%. There's it's 40p a litre of duty. Then there's a band between 6.9 and 7.5, and then a band between 7.5 and 8.5. That is going to go, and it's going to be on a sliding scale dependent upon the amount of alcohol that you are producing. Overall, that means that higher alcohol ciders are going to pay more. Now, this is obviously a bit of a challenge and a difficulty for smaller cider makers, because naturally their ciders are going to come out a little bit more alcoholic. So that's the first kind of major change that's going to come into play. But to sort of address some of those challenges that will face those smaller makers, there's something else coming in called a Small Producers Relief Scheme, which beer in the UK has had since 2002 and has been one of the major contributors to the growth and the boom and the explosion of small brewers in this country. That does mean effectively a discount applied to the amount of duty that is paid by smaller producers. And that exact rate is still to be determined what it's going to be. But crucially, it also, there is a protection for the 7,000 litre duty exemption. So if you still make less than 7,000 litres in the UK, you do not have to pay any duty at all. And one of the challenges is for small cider makers who want to try and grow out of 7,000 litres. Previously, it's been a prohibitive sort of leap or a drop off a cliff edge to then go to a full rate of duty. So hopefully, there should be a little bit of a cushion now to facilitate these cider makers to grow in an organic fashion.
So are you saying that before this tax comes in, every producer that's making under 7,000 litres in the UK pays nothing, and if they do a litre over, they pay the full tax on everything before that?
That's right. On every single, on all 7,001 litres. And not only, that's not a discounted rate, that is the standard rate that everybody makes, no matter what scale you are. Even the world's largest cider maker will pay the same amount as somebody who makes 7,001 litres. So the protection of that duty exemption was surprising that it was retained, but it's there, and that will be of great benefit for small producers, farm diversification, hobbyists, community orchards, people who are protecting old orchards, things like that. So there's great benefit to come from that. Which then brings us on to sparkling cider. Now, sparkling cider doesn't simply mean with some sparkle, with some carbonation. It means sparkling like a sparkling wine. It means highly carbonated, greater than 3 bars worth of pressure, and or with a mushroom cork and wire cage around it. So that, that's that sparkling kind of presentation. That actually pays a different rate of duty. Funnily enough, a higher rate of duty.
What?
Apparently, really quite
Excuse me?
prohibitively high. I know.
Well acted, Grant.
Disgusting.
You didn't know that. I mean, look at this. If somebody made or tries to sell a sparkling cider at 6.5% ABV at the moment, that's going to cost a whopping £2.88 a litre of duty, rather than 40p a litre of duty if it was simply a still cider, a carbonated cider, or whether it be one that is a still product. But under the proposed changes, there's going to be a reduction, so it would half it down to £1.43 a litre of duty, which is that's quite a significant shift. So hopefully that's going to precipitate the growth of more of those drinks that exude like a real high quality and hopefully like a higher price point, but whilst also making it a little bit more viable for retailers and for wholesalers and distributors, and obviously for the drinkers, for the punters as well. So that's a really positive move in my mind. Onto flavoured ciders, and again, there's flavoured ciders aren't actually taxed as a cider in the UK; they're taxed as a kind of wine. And overarchingly, I know there's going to. It's very simple.
I know you're in now. If you're still listening, you're in. You're not getting out.
You're down.
I've been
wormhole.
listening since that Biffy Clyro episode, and by God, it's just got more and more entertaining.
Our glass is half fucked.
Well, if you're a fan of flavoured cider, it's not so fucked anymore, because if before, again, a flavoured cider of 6.5% alcohol would have cost £2.97 a litre of duty, whereas now it is only that £1.40 odd figure. So so it could be that we see more of those sort of higher end, more interesting flavoured ciders.
Can I ask at this moment? Why?
Hang on. Is that more of an existential question?
Sorry, I thought I was on a different podcast. I thought I was on Rainn Wilson's spiritual podcast.
Midnight gospel over here. Can I ask why?
No, the flavoured cider duty. Why was that introduced? Why does that exist? And what is it that? What's the thinking behind it?
There is no flavoured cider duty. It's wine.
Yeah.
duty.
Okay. So why is flavoured cider in that come under that duty as opposed to cider?
Because when cider duty was reintroduced in 1976, it was written in as being made from apples and pears, because
Right.
that's cider. That's the history of cider. That's the culture of cider in this country, certainly. And there was no long-standing tradition or production of any cider with additional fruits, flavors, herbs, spices, or whatever. And so over the course of, so that was where it started from, and also the protection for cider being this kind of unique drink. So when these flavored ciders started to show up, they were, to start with, they were imported from Scandinavia, and then we've had the UK interpretations of them. It's that was where it started as being something that was quite different. We now get to this point, of course, that it's taxed as one thing, but is labelled as a cider, even though it's not taxed as a cider. And so some people like the fact that it doesn't, it shouldn't be taxed as a cider. At least with cider duty, there are some controls and stipulations as to what can and can't be in there. Although there, the minimum juice content for cider is only 35%. But for those wines, those made wines, there is no minimum juice content. So it could be as low as you want it to be. So there's pros and cons to it being or not being in cider duty.
But with the tax on it in the UK of like cider, there's a permissible list of ingredients then. So if you put something into a cider that isn't on that list, it becomes a made wine. That's
absolutely right. And the list is quite impressive. You've got things, you can have obviously water and sugars.
Really impressive.
tartrazine, thank you, aspartame, saccharin, sunset yellow. You've got all these wonderful things that can be added. Heaven forbid if you add, a blackberry to your cider, then it suddenly becomes the devil's liquor, and attracts a massive extra hike of duty.
Or even a hop as well.
Or even a hop.
Well, leads us on to our ciders of the evening. Grant, you've got a cider in front of you with a non-permissible ingredient. No,
I do. I'm drinking Pomologic Hopple. It's called. I just actually realised that it's 4.5%, so isn't really affected by any of this, right, Gabe? Because it's under.
It will, it is actually, it's going to see a considerably lower rate of duty than it would have been previously.
It would still, okay.
Yeah, the upper threshold for most flavoured ciders in the UK is 4%, because that's right. Where there was a giant tax hike before that.
You kind of chickened out halfway through. You were like, oh shit, it might not be relevant.
I totally did, because I looked at it, I was like, oh, okay, I didn't, because most of the ciders they make are above that, but yeah, so it's a hop cider. It also was presented with a cork and cage as well, so it's
double whammy.
Yeah, double whammy. And that's something that they're a cider maker that I've imported before, and if anyone isn't aware, when you're importing cider from outside the UK, the duty is paid by the person who imports that cider, and you pay the UK duty on
so
that.
that maker's liquid is beholden to our duty restrictions. So if in their country they make something that's like completely innocent to put black currants in it, if it crosses over to us, you have to pay a huge whack on it. Jesus.
Yeah, and you should probably, you could technically, you'd be bringing it in, they can reclaim the duty that they have paid on it because they're not selling it in their own country. So you could get it at a lower rate, but that's all dependent on what their duty scheme is. And it might be pence per litre if they've got, if they don't have this made wine duty. So you're still looking at bringing in a mixed palette of ciders. Some of them are sparkling, some of them are flavoured, and the duty rates go from 40 pence a bottle to £2 a bottle.
Jesus.
For no reason.
Has this been an eye opener for you of like, will this affect Restock and the other sort of artisanal cider wholesalers on what they buy, what they bring in, and like, have you thought about what you're going to bring in now, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly will affect anyone who's importing. I mean, I guess it's sparkling and flavoured are still higher, but also there'll be certain ciders that I import that are of a certain ABV that I'm going to pay more on as well.
Jesus.
Not a lot though, to be fair. I was actually did some calculations on Albie Hill, because we talk about it quite a lot, and it's a still cider, and at 8%, currently is 46 pence a bottle. It will be 52 pence a bottle. So it's not a lot, but it's not a lot. But then when you multiply that by a case and then by a pallet, it can be a lot to outlay in advance of selling anything,
Yeah, if you've done the groundwork as well of selling it, and then the next vintage it comes in and you're changing how much you're going to buy or anything like that. Like, well, exactly. This is a change in the road, isn't it?
Well, that's it. People will, hopefully building up a brand like that, people will expect to pay a certain amount for a bottle of Albie Hill. As you would with a wine, hopefully it would get to that stage. But if it's changing dramatically ABV wise, then that has to be reflected in the price that the consumer pays as well. So
if we see a lot more shrubs coming through restock and then Albie Hill stays the same price, we'll know that you're jacking up the price of the Well, I'm drinking right now 2 hopped ciders technically. So the first one is Beard and Saber's Dolores, which is a fruit cider from just the hops being added in it, technically, of like a made wine. And then the other one is Scarlet Sharp, which I looked on nice. Untapped. And Alistair M still gave it 3 stars and said a nice bit of blackcurrant, pretty bland otherwise. But these are drinks that have been affected from the start of it. Like a lot of cider makers won't put fruit in them or mess around or do experiments like this because there's always been that kind of immediate tax up front not to even go near. So will this tax change kind of inspire makers to try different things, do you think, Gabe?
I think it will to an extent. Let's be fair that there's still going to be nigh on the tripling of the duty rate above sort of 5% of alcohol. Actually, that's not true relative to the new rate. Without having, I'm just talking actual lies. It is still going to be considerably higher than cider duty. That is the fact. So it's not that it's going to have parity, but it is going to be in a better position than it is currently. So I think that it will precipitate a little bit more playfulness and a bit more expression and trying some new things, which as we all enjoy here, we like really, really well made drinks that do have complexity and character and a bit of playfulness in there. So it certainly can't be a bad thing.
And also, I feel like this is maybe step one in these changes, and they'll be implemented, and then hopefully maybe looked at in a few years to say, okay, well, this is what is working, what's not working, and at that point go, okay, well, maybe we level out sparkling and still, or flavored if it's natural from natural sources. We can make compensate for that as well. You would hope, maybe not. Maybe it'll be another 40 years, 50 years before they look at it again.
5 years time, they go, all right, guys, we decimated the cider market. Changes.
Nobody's still making any money.
Yes. There's one final element, actually, one final bit of benefit to come from this duty change, which there's an extra 5% off a draft product, but rather controversially and immediately lambasted, they said that it has to be a minimum of a 40-litre vessel, so a keg or something like that, which discounts a lot of the smaller, key kegs and things like that, and of course the 20-litre bag-in-boxes. And the very funny thing was that the Chancellor Rishi Sunak and Prime Minister Boris Johnson, on the day of the announcement of this, promptly went to a brewery and were waving 30-litre kegs in the air to celebrate the fact.
No, they were lifting them up. Yeah.
No, they were 30s.
Empty, weren't they? I thought they were 50s that they were
30s.
Doing.
Oh, they were 30s. And so it was a little bit, bit foolish. But so that's a bit of a problem from a cider perspective, because obviously there are cider makers who put their ciders into kegs, or 30-litre kegs, but also those hundreds of cider makers who use 20-litre bag-in-box to present their cider as a still drink in the pub.
Aren't kegs the future of cider? I heard that story.
I think that kegs have a critical role to play in the explosion of small cider makers into the consciousness of drinkers who aren't mega aficionados but very easygoing casual drinkers. I think it will have a very, very significant part to play. Yeah,
I like the little hidden insult there. All these little
I know Gabe didn't get it. Gabe didn't get it.
Oh, I got it.
I meant his little jab at you, Grant. A little sneaky one.
Well, I got it. You didn't see mine. You didn't see my little left hook, did you?
One tiny little lift hook. Also, you swung with your right arm then, Gabe.
You're seeing me on the mirroring, you idiot.
Well, here I am, the consumer. I've just been hit with like a left or right hook, questionable. But ignoring that we're actually going into depth here with it, what would I see going to, say, the bar, the bottle shop, or my local cider producer? What changes would I see in sort of the next 5 years? What are we expecting to see cider makers do with this new taxing?
Yeah, good question. I mean, first of all, the sort of the roundup is happening right now just to finalize all details, but it wouldn't actually come into play for another year. So you got another year, listeners, of us talking about tax. Don't you worry. And then there'll be talk about how the tax has been implemented and then whether it works. So there's a good few years worth of tax.
And then we'll do our best of year end, and we'll do the tax anthology.
Oh, come on, Scott.
Jesus, Scott.
Come on,
editing
Scott.
every episode for 40 hours.
What will we see? We will see higher alcohol ciders from larger cider makers, either massively reducing their alcohol content because the duty will be sort of too high for what their consumers will typically want. Maybe the actual removal of some brands entirely. I think that we will see some smaller cider makers growing in volume and visibility because they've had this, discounted duty rate. They've been able to invest that back into their business to buy more tanks, to make more cider, to employ more people to make and to sell that cider. So hopefully we'll be able to see more of those smaller, those craft ciders on the, in the pubs, on the lines, but also in the fridges and in retail environments. Maybe there will be some more of those sort of slightly more experimental sparkling or flavored ciders. But, and hopefully, I know it's not necessarily a consumer focused thing, but the protection of some of these orchards as well, sort of giving extra focus to the places that produce the raw material, which have amazing biodiversity and carbon and sort of social benefits. So hopefully this has a potential to be a positive thing.
I think the main consumer, the main upside for the final consumer is going to be choice. So much more choice. Same as when, maybe not all of a sudden for someone like you, Martyn, who has been a beer drinker for a while, but for someone like me, all of a sudden there was fucking craft beer everywhere.
Oh yeah,
all of a sudden the choice was ridiculous. And I'm not saying it's going to happen exactly like that, but you'll see makers who we speak about on here who are only making 7,000 litres. They can start making 10, 15, up to 20,000 without having to take that risk of putting everything into it and putting everything on the line. And I just think that, being able to walk into, not supermarkets just now, but an independent bottle shop that's primarily beer and wine, and that their cider section is slowly growing, is I think going to be the first sign for consumers that something's changing.
There's only one final element that hasn't really been covered by the proposed changes, which is around minimum juice content, because this is something that's really important for me.
Minimum juice content.
Juice content.
M&M Juice content.
MJC for short.
That is the shorthand acronym that I do use, in fact, very frequently.
In a book, or you ever used it?
I have used it in Modern British Cider. That's right. Thank you very much, Grant.
Yeah, I did.
And also,
I did read it.
Plug.
Il Mondo del Cidro.
Well, no, I didn't.
No,
I didn't. No.
So in ciderology,
Scott, take it back. No.
Oh,
no. Stop. No.
Can I hear it in Able?
You absolutely cannot.
And
Anyway.
this cider has 98% MJC.
What was that impression of me in my shop?
I don't know. Oh, hello. Yes.
You've been there as well.
Would you like to peruse our crisps?
We're pretty much we're 90%, 100%. If that makes sense. We've got 3 crisps.
You're
900%. Yeah. Almonds, olives.
Gabe, Talk about
The olives are
the
100%
minimum juice.
olives.
Okay, so minimum juice content is the, as the name would suggest, is the legal minimum amount of apple juice that is allowed to be within a cider in order for it to be dutied as a cider. But best basically 1/3 apple juice potentially. I don't think that is enough to sort of uphold the reputation, the authenticity of cider. I think that the vast majority of consumers, although not expecting their cider to be made from just apple juice, they would expect it to be the majority. And it's that very low level that also encourages and facilitates the opportunity to create drinks in the UK that are the lowest price per unit of alcohol of any drink that you can purchase at all. These are drinks that are often misused by young people and people with substance issues. These are potentially really, really bad and harmful drinks, and it facilitates it. So I think it should be raised to 50%, which isn't a huge leap, but it does build in a lot of extra cost for those kind of products, and hopefully will make them just a little bit less of the lowest common denominator.
Is that going to be a part of the tax, or is this just your hope that people sort of rally around it?
Well, although it wasn't really sort of mentioned in any kind of the new proposals, there was like a 1-sentence line out of the consultation response that said that the Treasury would like to know more about minimum juice content, which obviously is all I need to write it's currently topping 5,000 word duty submission about why there should be an increase in minimum juice content. So good luck to the Treasury official who has to wade through that dirge.
I mean, I'm all for it. I've got to say, I'm all for upping it.
All for what?
All for upping it.
Upping it.
Yeah, upping the minimum juice content, the MJC, as we call it in the industry.
Place to be.
It certainly is not, Martyn, and you know that as well as I do. But yeah, I think most of the producers we have had on here and that we speak about and that we drink are it doesn't concern them because they make either full juice or close to full juice ciders anyway. And you might find a few of them going, well, it doesn't make a difference to me because they don't use water or sugar or the flavors or malic acid, lactic acid. But I think there's something that for cider to be taken seriously, which I think it needs to be done, to be able to say, well, any cider that's made here in this country is as you say, Gabe, has the majority of it is juice from the fruit that it's representing has been fermented from. That just makes sense to me.
Well, why don't we ask the cider makers themselves and see whether we do actually have a couple of cider makers waiting in the wings to give us their expert opinion and insight. Let's see whether minimum juice content is important to them, and let's see what these proposed changes have on their business. First up, we've got Mr. Barny Butterfield of Sandford Orchards. Barny, welcome to the Neutral Cider Hotel. It's great to have you here finally after all this time. After a few stop starts. Obviously, we're talking about tax today, a subject that's close to many of our hearts, although not producer Scott's by the sound of it. He is hounding us today about the lack of importance or the lack of relativity of this wonderful topic. Obviously, there's a number of tax changes that are being sort of proposed in the UK at the moment. You're a cider maker who, if not quite a humongous scale, you're certainly not a micro scale maker anymore. How do you think these duty changes are going to be impacting on you as a cider maker?
Yeah, not positively. It's gonna put up a lot of the costs that we'll have to pass on to the higher strength, more interesting ciders we make. So it could have a chilling effect on the interesting ciders that the bigger cider makers make. And that's a shame because a lot of the bigger cider makers are capable of making really good, repeatable approachable drinks into the wider market, so it could have a chilling effect on the growth of interesting ciders that function as a funnel to the diaspora of really interesting ciders. So, all drinks markets trickle up and trickle down, and they don't exist in isolation. So that's a major worry in the way that they've decided to fiddle with it. I'm a staunch abolitionist. Cider tax is relatively, cider tax is my age in the UK. It's 40 odd years old. And, the poor brewers have been dealing with excise for 900 years. They're easier, that tap water and corn is, eminently taxable, and cider should sit in its privileged position, which it used to. So, I still think it's worth reminding people of that. So that's not going to be great. And then cider makers of my size, Gabe, of which there's a handful that have grown up. We're going to get sniped both ends, because at the current level that it's being suggested, smaller cider makers are going to be able to benefit from half the duty. And as with the beer relief, we've seen that the discount goes straight on price, and so that'll mean we'll struggle to compete in a lot of markets with our ciders. So, but I'm worried. I'm very worried for my business. But that's what business owners do. They worry, and right. Don't we all?
Absolutely.
Right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So and what it does, any time that a government decides to intervene in a market and decide to apply a tax to a given level, you're going to pick winners and losers. So at the moment, they're picking winners and losers at level A. We'll see, what comes of it.
So what would you have liked to have seen aside from abolition? What would you like to see from this announcement?
Well, for sure, a bit more of an intelligent understanding that alcohol strength isn't really as relevant as they want it to be, and particularly in the quality. So I think they just got that wrong. I think that the tentacles of a different kind of abolition and dressed up as health are so enwrapped in the halls of Westminster. The anti-alcohol brigade are really a very powerful and amorphous beast, and so they have driven this narrative that the only thing that alcohol does is produce harm. So that's where I see the problem arising from. I support the small cider makers relief. I don't think that someone, though, that's making 500,000 litres employing 10 people would be considered small. So I would have had it much smaller and have it as a gateway, and something like the 7,000 litres XXL, and allowing someone to earn a full living for their family, good living, and then if they want to then get serious and go commercial, then they join the real world with the rest of us. What's being envisaged at the moment just will come after businesses like mine, from businesses that are already established, already profitable, already doing well, are suddenly going to get a kickstart. So that's me. Boo-hoo, poor me, right? But that's
yeah, but that's why you're here. That's why we asked you.
Yeah. It's definitely a viewpoint. And as well, you made that jump into a bigger commercial cidery years ago. What would the litre point for you have been when you started to actually employ people? That's like the goal is to get smaller makers into a more fruitful sort of state. How big were you before it started to turn for you?
Yeah, I probably about 35,000 litres to 70,000 litres. And I know that number can be rendered about 1,000 different ways in brewers' barrels and hectolitres and all the rest of it. But yeah. So about that size. So it's sort of 35,000 to 50,000 litres is you could do that on your own. But if you're on a strategy for growth, then you would start bringing in a bit of help at that point, so that because there's so much to do within a business if you're going to do it all, from packaging and branding and sales and all the rest of it.
Was that 35 to 78? Was there a big leap to get to that point in terms of your breaking point for paying duty?
Yeah, I was completely lucky. In fact, I've been really lucky in a lot of my career, and I meet a lot of people who maybe pretend they haven't been lucky. I've been lucky, just lucky. I got some really, really great, completely fluky breaks. I was at about 7,000 litres and decided I wanted to do it as a job, and I made 70,000 litres, and then I was lucky enough to win Cider of the Year from Canberra, and sold it all, and that was my, so I just got lucky. I won it when I had to, but that's because my wife said, "Stop mucking around, stop dicking around making cider that's making, get back on the farm and farm your chickens and cows and pigs." And I thought, I like doing cider, so I said, right, I'm gonna go all in. And then I've got to make it work. So by doing that, I ended up being successful. But it was ridiculously risky. But it's the only way once you start paying duty to make it work, right? On those metrics. So having a tapered way in that allowed me up to 100,000 litres and allowed me to get my way up. By that stage, great. I could have just stuck at that and earned a living, or I could bring in other people and bring them in as well. So that's why I think that's the level. But
Barney, there are lots of ciders made, not just in the UK, but all over the world by larger cider makers, whether it be of higher ABV, high or lower alcohol content, which have quite a paucity, certainly a minority of apple juice within there, and not the first ingredient on the list, if there was indeed an ingredients list on the packaging. Something that I'm quite interested in exploring is about trying to raise the minimum juice content in the UK from 35% to a minimum of 50%. So there's some confidence that, the majority of what you're drinking is apple juice. What do you think about the potential role or importance of minimum juice, if at all?
I don't. Whilst
okay, thank you, goodbye.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Right, see you later, Barney.
Yeah,
I've read your book, Gabe. Didn't like it.
No, it's just one of the things that I don't. And it's not about how I feel about cider, because I happen to feel the same way as you do about it. It's actually about how I fear those narratives can make a difference negatively in the marketplace. Where someone's got I've got a pint of cider here, and if the conversation is it's only 50% of cider, no one talks about having 94% water in their hand with a beer. They've got a whole beer. So I worry about that side of it, and also I am worried and I am concerned about being worthy as to the drinks that people enjoy. Cider has a long history of cheaper, diluted, but well-enjoyed drinks for people who don't want to subscribe to the bigger flavor club. Some people like Budweiser. It's incredibly well-executed beer. I wouldn't wash my feet in it, but it's fun. For those that like it, right? It's the hardest.
It's the same everywhere you go.
Speak to a brewer; they'll tell you if you wanted to give them the most impossible challenge, you say match Bud. They can't do it. The execution level is incredible. All of this stuff, I've been told by guys that know. So there's my problem. I don't want to look down on someone who wants a bottle of Crofter's Choice or a bottle of this or that, because it's not my place to tell them what they should be drinking. That should be driven by the quality, availability, and fairness of what I'm producing. So. I am a liberal, and that's my I don't wave Bibles, and I don't tell people they can't drink Frosty Jacks. If they like it, drink Frosty
Let them
Jacks.
have it.
Yeah.
You were saying about being screwed, and that might have an impact, and you're worried about the bigger guys or the medium to big guys making interesting stuff. Has there been a change for what you guys have projected you were going to make for the next year or 2 years or 3 years?
Martyn, you imagine that we're capable of making projections and knowing I get, I've got loads of chat, but those projections are no. I mean, so we're so proud of we released our vintage range. We released, all different wood character ciders. That's the kind of stuff that we're buzzing about getting right. And all of a sudden, the problem is that a retailer, we're going to take them to the retailer. They cost the same as the guy, maybe 20 miles away, who's got a 25 pence a bottle advantage. And you're going to sing a real good story to a retailer selling in, it's particularly in the west of England, low wage economies. You've got to have a really great story to definitely feel confident that you're worth that extra every time. That you're looking for a sale. So that's, and that's because if it goes ahead at the rate it is, that's because the government have said these guys don't have to pay, these guys do have to pay, and that'll be that. So that the problem there is, less availability of those ciders. So, that's...
Well, that's gutting news, as I had the Tremlitz bitter the other day, and I told Gabe, I think we had it on the pod, but I was like, it's the most cidery cider I think I've ever had, and I enjoyed every bloody sip of it. So if that means that makers like yourselves, because of this, aren't going to be making more of that, bit of a piss take, really, on my eyes.
Yeah, that's the risk. And also the risk is that because of the... So if you take aside I'm banging on about small... cider maker relief, but actually the way in which they're ramping up the duty on alcohol by volume. So just in the whole scheme of it, that's going to have a negative effect on any of the big guys making interesting ciders too. And they are really good gateway ciders. Some starts and actually has a sipping cider that just makes them really accessible, higher strength. So do Westerns. They're accessible. And that's the cider that then they say, oh, do you know what? I like the look of that Oliver's. I think, that's about the same strength as I had. They'll taste that. They might not like it. They might like it much simpler. They might think that is the best thing I've ever tried. And they'll, and so that's where, it's a shame that the outcome of what could have been an exciting review has become a little bit parlous.
So how is this, as simple as you can, how is this going to affect Sandford Orchards drinkers?
In the main, most of our drinkers are drinkers of our session ciders like Devon Red and Devon Mist. And so in the main, I think that will be pretty straightforward. Hopefully, we'll ride it out. It's by any measure, if you were to show an economist or an accountant a complete rip up of the rules and a change of the rules of engagement, you're gonna be a very brave person to just shrug your shoulder and say, "Oh, that'll be absolutely fine." You're bob on. I want to say that because I'm kind of conditioned to. But yeah, it's going to take. It'll have it's going to be a bump in the road for those for the kind of the medium in the commercial scale makers. It's going to present the other unintended consequence is that it could be very attractive to small brewers to make high strength, cheaply made industrial ciders. Because at half duty rate, a nice 7% with a bit of concentrate, load of sugar, boil it out, stick some flavouring in, wallop, and they will have. So they can now engage in that cider, and so it takes the specialness of cider from its terroir and from where we grow our orchards and where we have all of that heritage, love, and knowledge, and because I think you might see, like the gin explosion. Everyone you woke up in the morning and then your neighbour was making gin, right? And I think that there is a risk that this huge discount up to quite a commercial scale, because it's not. If it was up to one person's living, then or a bit 1.5, I don't think anyone would be interested. But this is, you took 500,000 litres at half duty rate, especially on the higher strength. So I think you're going to see a lot of, I won't name businesses, but you probably have a few in your head. I think you're going to see
Oliver's.
I think, yeah. Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot. I think you'll see that. I think that's one of the unintended consequences of the legislation, is that you'll see not great quality, highly available, very cheap, pushing aside maybe better stuff, because they'll be able to make it a lot cheaper than good cider will. So
fucking hell, Barney! I thought it was going to be cheery.
On that
we brought you on for giggles, Barney.
Well, yeah, I
get Barney. He's a laugh.
I know. Yeah, I know.
I've got the 45 minutes, and I'm gonna move on to a PowerPoint in a minute. It's all grass.
Bring back the old bad internet, Barney. He was a joy. What the fuck is that?
Well, yeah,
Barney, thank you very much for joining us. We know that your time is limited, but your internet has been excellent.
Yeah,
what a joy! and your insight is truly unique, as there aren't so many cider makers of your scale in the UK. So really, really important to get your viewpoints. And thanks for sparing some time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, look, good luck with the year ahead. We'll be tasting a number of your ciders, no doubt. I always have a bottle of the General to hand for those moments when an 8.4% cider is very much needed. So,
thank you so much.
Well, not for long if the tax changes. Jesus Christ! Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Cheers to you, Barney.
Great stuff. Thank you, guys. And thank you for everything you guys are doing. It is inspirational. It is very, very focused, funny, and I love it. So thank you so much for what you guys are doing. It's brilliant. And we're lucky to have you. So top stuff.
Thanks, man.
Very kind words.
Cheers.
Thank you, my friend.
See ya.
All the best. See you soon.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Well, there we go. Pearls of wisdom from Mr. Barney Butterfield, as ever. Chaps, what do we think? Sort of key things that sort of Barney emerged with. What hadn't we really considered, I suppose?
Well, for me and the cider makers that I know and the products that I drink, my first thought isn't necessarily the bigger guys and their more experimental range or their higher ABV range. If that's something that's going to take a hit, then there's a problem. I was thinking about it with my dad. His favorite ciders are the kind of commercially viable ones, supermarket ready, Henry Westons, and they're plus 7% ABV. They're great for getting people into the kind of ciders that I like. They're big on character and they're also easily accessible. So if there's less of them, then that's something that for all the plus of it being for small makers, if that's at the detriment of getting people in, then I'm a little bit more worried than I was going in.
It's part of the challenge, is that there is no differentiation between Barney's, the General, Henry Weston's Vintage Reserve, and Frosty Jack. They are ciders, they are fermented apple juice, they abide by the duty regulations. They're both cider, but they're both completely different in terms of their attitude, their ethos, their flavor profile, their cost of production, and all those different things, which is why, in my humble opinion, and Barney is obviously of a slightly different opinion here,
maybe
an increase in the minimum juice content would make those cheapest drinks at the higher alcohol level that bit more expensive. But we'll just have to see.
You didn't win him over with that one, did you?
I know.
I mean, I think when I see someone like Henry Weston's vintage in the supermarket, I think it's too cheap anyway. They've got a bottle of that at what is it? 8.2%?
8.2, that's right.
Yeah. Like it's too cheap.
So for our American listeners, I don't know about the calculations, but it's half a litre and it's about £2 £2.50, £2.60.
No, we're not even
way
as much
cheaper
as
than
that. It's
Is it?
It is often in the £3 for £5.
I was going to say,
at Tesco or
under
or any
£2.
major.
God, I'm
supermarket.
getting ripped off at mine, aren't I?
Yeah.
For you, cider
Tea belly?
shit.
Oh,
yeah, it's £5. Oh no.
He also made the point-
So I was just going to say, like, I don't think it necessarily is going to hurt them as much as he says it is.
Well, I mean, it's going to hit his personal pocket. You know, he is going to be hundreds of thousands of pounds worse off from a duty perspective. Even, you know, not for stuff that's at the 8%, but anything that sits at 5 or 5.5 or 6% alcohol is going to attract a considerably greater rate of duty. So if you're at an absolutely macro ginormous scale, damn it, your profit's going to go from 50 million quid down to 42 million quid this year. For Barny, you know, he's going to have to really hope that his son becomes really good at cricket so that he can, you know, help to contribute towards the bills. You know, it's going to have a big impact on the bottom line.
Not even Barney Orchard's kid's going to be that good at cricket.
So do you think like the medium-sized cider makers are going to get hit the worst with this tax change?
I think they could well be. You know, they don't have the economies of scale and the giant volume, and therefore sort of good profitability to be able to sort of ride out and suck up some of the duty increases. And often, a lot of their products are at the lower alcohol level. You know, Heineken, owner of Bullner's, world's biggest cider maker, Strongbow, world's biggest cider brands, at 4.5% alcohol. There's going to be no change in duty for that product. So. Because, you know, again, because those makers who try to make something with a little bit more, certainly sort of more traditionality to the cider making process, which is that naturally the ciders will come out above 6% alcohol, they're going to get penalized because it's higher duty. If you're a really small producer, you're going to get the benefit of the small producers release scheme, so you get a duty discount. Those mid-scale producers, they're the ones that are going to feel the pinch.
But then, if you know, as Barney said also about minimum juice content, he doesn't really care. So, is it something that he would then just go, okay, well, we'll water it down more, and we'll get down to that percentage, and nobody will really notice because nobody really cares. Because they go into the pub and they drink Sandford Orchards, and they go into Tesco and they pick up the Devon Red, and they don't necessarily look at the ABV. That's just what they drink. So there's the opportunity for them just to amend their recipe slightly and have it not really affect them.
I think there will be lots of cider makers amending their recipes, exactly as you said. I don't think actually, you know, beyond a bit of minor tweaking possibly, I don't think that Barney and Sandford Orchards will be one of them, because he desperately wants to make ciders with integrity and intensity of flavor profile. It's not to say that every single one of his ciders needs to be, you know, north of 80 or 85% juice content. That's not, he doesn't equate, you know, rightly in my opinion, the higher the juice content, the better the quality of the cider. It's not as simple as that. But I don't see him suddenly trying to drop his juice content down to 35% just to make a quick buck. He would be involved in another industry other than cider if he wanted to make a lot of money. You know, he's in it because he wants to make a large quantity of a great liquid. But just and be viable
at those volumes. Those, you know, making those small changes here and there and around those ciders that are for the mass market can save you quite a lot of money on that scale, to be able to then swallow up a bit of it, so that you can still make the more interesting ones. And also it makes sense for makers like Sandford Orchards to have more people able to grow. You know, it's not necessarily just straight competition. It's an increased market that means you have more drinkers and you're selling to more people as well.
Absolutely. Well, look, speaking of people who are looking potentially to grow their business and enterprise, let's move on to speak to our next cider maker, Mr. Kingsley Ash of Thornborough Cider from North Yorkshire. He's currently, a smaller micro producer, but potentially with a view to growing his business. Kingsley, welcome to the Neutral Cider Hotel.
Hi.
Kingsley, you're a smaller, micro. I don't know what scale of producer you describe yourself as, but certainly somebody at the smaller end of the spectrum.
Taller than me.
These proposed changes to duty that have been announced in the autumn. How do you think that they will be beneficial for you and somebody in your position, your sort of volume production as a cider maker?
Well, there's two things. One is the 7,000 litre limit, which unbelievably has been kept. I don't think anyone was expecting that. And then we have got the small brewers relief. I don't know what they're calling it for cider.
I think it's overarching we call the small producer relief across the board. Yeah.
Small producer.
SPR.
So we've got that going above the 7,000 litres. So it just takes away that cliff edge. And means that you're no longer sort of limited to either making 7,000 or 20,000. You can make in between, which is exactly what I want to do. So for me, that's fantastic.
Where are you at
so
just now?
That's the best thing.
What literage are you at? Right,
7,000.
Right, so you
6,999.
Never a litre more.
Legally, 1 litre under the limit. With that, it's. Yeah,
this is on the record, right? So.
with the, I guess, how do I put this? As a small cider maker, I know a lot of small businesses don't actually have a real business plan. When you started, you were assuming that there was that cliff edge. Did you have a business plan in place when you started, and have you had to change it in the face of this tax change? To both?
No.
Next question.
Yeah. Just
Episode
no.
2, business management. Yes.
So no, I didn't. It was never a plan to have a cider business. It just happened, and it was never a plan to kind of grow to a certain level. It just kind of grew, and at some point, it seemed like a good idea to plant a lot of apple trees. And I didn't really think through that. I didn't think that at some point that would mean I'd have a lot of apples. And luckily, just at the point where I have to think about that, Rishi's gone and changed the rules.
Of course, now Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, the person who has devised all this, he's your local MP, isn't he? Has he been down to your place?
He certainly has. Yeah. He came down, spent an afternoon. He came and planted a tree in the orchard.
Did it? Oh dear.
So
it's not. It's just in case he's listening, which he won't be. It's not dead.
Let me text him. No need, mate. He's just playing.
He's a big fan.
What variety was it? Out of interest.
It was a Ribston Pippin, a classic Yorkshire variety.
Nice, because that's right. Because you are North Yorkshire, which is not the classical archetypal southwest of England cider making. So you've got sort of different considerations of climate and things like that to contend with. What's it like being a small cider maker in an area where there aren't many other cider makers around? Do you see that as being opportunistic, a good thing that there isn't much competition, or that it's really tough because no one knows what cider is or good cider?
Yeah, both. Absolutely both. It's people are really interested because it's so unusual. There's a very sort of strong beer brewing tradition around here, but nothing from cider. But there are some very old orchards, so there is an established apple growing tradition, but not cider making. So yeah, people are really interested, and that really helps. But conversely, there's nobody here who knows anything about it. So in terms of selling the stuff, we're starting from a very low base education-wise. And in terms of just getting advice and working out what to do, there's no one for hundreds of miles. I can't sort of take a batch to someone and say, what do you think of this? Or, what's going on here? What's this weird flavour? I just have to kind of make it up as I go along. And That's
you do sound like a cider maker then.
No business plan.
We've just had Barny on, who's just described like the whole thing and the flux and the growth, and you've just whimpered up like, I don't know what flavors are. I know.
No, well, obviously, it's a different thing, isn't it? It's approached from a different angle.
Yeah.
And it's more. I mean, the idea is it's a sort of organic thing that you sort of plant something in the ground, literally and sort of metaphorically, and then you see what grows from it, literally and metaphorically, and that's where we are.
Well, what has grown is an award-winning business, as it happens. Congratulations on your success at the Breakthrough Awards, Cider Maker Awards, as hosted by Sandford Orchards. That was I happened to be one of the judges. And we were all really impressed with the quality of the liquid, but the packaging, the presentation as well, which of course is that you undertake some, create a naturally sparkling drink. You have a cork and wire closure. Now, one of the changes again to this, but one of the proposals is going to be a huge reduction in the duty applied to those ciders that have this dress that makes it presenting like a sparkling wine. Is that reduction in duty on that type of product, which is the vast majority of what you make, is that going to, again, extra incentive for you to grow your business and make more of that type of drink?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's beyond the 7,000. We've got the small producers relief, and then we've got this reduction from, at the moment I'll be paying something like £2.20 or something per bottle, per bottle in tax. Listen, this is about tax. Per bottle in tax, and that's going to go down to about £1.10 or £1.15. So that's half, basically. So that's a huge thing. But I still don't understand why sparkling drinks are taxed more than non-sparkling drinks. I mean, what's the basis?
Fancy people.
Doesn't make any sense, does it? Because if you're trying to prevent, the main thing of taxation is to prevent, unhealthy drinking and raise money for the treasury. I guess it raises money for the treasury, but it doesn't stop unhealthy drinking, because there's no less health in drinking a sparkling drink, is there, than drinking a non-sparkling?
I think the introduction of the sparkling rate for wine, to which then cider was also then pegged on to, pertains to some kind of challenge to the nature of sparkling drinks at a European level, going back 30 years or so. But it's one of those things. An amendment, a change was made to the system, and then it has just stayed. That you don't get so many opportunities to review in the wholesale way that there is this time around. So you do get these weird legacies, and this is one of them. You're right. I mean, is there any reason why, although there's a reduction on this sparkling cider, it's still considerably greater than the normal cider that hasn't got this cork, this mushroom cork and wire and or 3-bar pressure. So
yeah, three times as much.
Yeah, it's a major impact.
So aside from that, is there anything else with this announcement that you saw and thought that it wasn't right or wasn't going to work specifically for you and Thornborough Cider?
No, I mean, it's almost the opposite. What I'm more worried about is the beer and wine producers looking at cider and saying, that is just unfair because we have such preferential rates compared to they do. But I think that's completely right, because we have that unique thing where cider's really good and the rest are rubbish. No, where cider is completely linked to the orchard, and the orchard is a key habitat. I mean, it's a key priority for biodiversification, so it should be incentivized. It's right that stuff that comes from that habitat should be incentivized. So I think for me that feels right.
With it though, there is a sort of focus on the higher ABV. I'm assuming because you're smaller and what we've tried your ciders, that you're not interfering as much when it comes to higher stuff. Would that change with that, or would you try and do some keeving or try and lower the ABV, or would you just take the hit on the kind of tax?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just take the hit. I mean, it's a style that I want to make, so I'm going to carry on making it. And actually, because what I'm attempting to do is make a premium product. I can charge more for it, and charging more for it is part of the kind of part of the package. You pay more and you get something that's special, hopefully. So I can kind of absorb that tax reasonably well. And I understand that, if you buy a 2-litre bottle of Frosty Jack or something, which is also high strength, also sparkling, then that's going to have more of a hit because it's a cheaper product. So there's going to be proportionally more of the price towards tax. So that feels all right too. And I'm not against paying tax. I think it's a good thing to do. So we need it at the moment.
What's your thoughts or opinions on minimum juice content? In the UK, a cider is allowed to pay this cider duty if it has as little as 35% apple juice. What are your thoughts, and what would you like to see as that minimum juice figure?
I don't really have an opinion on this. I don't really care. Because
2 for 2, Gabe. Gabe's funny, this.
That's like the willow hitting the leather of your question.
Yeah, he said it. I don't know.
Yeah, Barney literally was like, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, Gabe, I'm insulted you even asked about that. So,
but Kingsley, let's have your answer.
If I was making 35% content cider, then I'd be worried about it, and I'd be concerned. But I mean, it's 100%, and I'm just going to carry on doing that, and anyone else can do whatever they want to do. It's not up for me to sort of police that.
You don't think that cider, products that bear the word cider that have a majority of water rather than apple juice do potentially something to denigrate the reputation or the authenticity of the drink cider, and that could be adverse to the drinks that you make?
I'm not sure, really. I mean, there's a place for, if you buy apple juice, you can get it, on the shelf here from concentrate, and over here, fresh juice, and you can make your choice. I think it's okay for consumers to have that choice. Maybe they should be made more aware that they're making that choice. But that's about labeling.
The next episode is about labeling. Absolutely right. Because, of course, producer Scott's loving this, because there is no legal requirement to put any ingredients listing to whether the cider is made from concentrate or freshly pressed juice or otherwise. Those things don't exist.
That's what I'd be much
maybe
more,
that's for another time.
In.
Yeah. Cool. So I'll drop the whole juice thing, which I might have just spent the last 2 weeks writing a 5,000 word. Submission.
I did wonder, right? Yeah.
I do very much support your campaign for 50% minimum juice.
Oh, thank you very much.
But I'm happy to leave that campaign to you.
Thanks. Okay, all right.
You don't have 1,000 apple trees to prune, so go for it.
No, this is very true. This is very true.
The other thing, I've got another thing for you, actually, which I was thinking. So, UNESCO World Heritage, you can list a site for UNESCO World Heritage. You can also list a culture or a kind of thing. And Belgian beer, I think, has this
Belgian
special
beer
status.
got it about 3 or 4 years ago. That's
I thought that maybe you could get it for cider in the UK.
What should we go for? Would it be?
I liked your wording there. You could get it.
Yeah. Well, not you personally.
We'll support you. So what would it be? UK cider?
It would probably have to be a West Country thing. You don't want to be... no, it can't be English.
Careful what you fucking say.
Boys.
Careful. Yes, we'll have to work on that. Maybe British cider might be the
modern
the
British cider. Yes,
it could even be modern British cider. Come on, Scott. There we go. There we go. Little bit delayed. So, do you know what, Kingsley? That thought had crossed my mind once before, but I decided to write about minimum juice content instead.
It makes for far more riveting questions if you hadn't noticed.
Okay, Kingsley. So what is on the horizon? What does 2022 hold for you? What was your harvest like? What's getting you excited about the year ahead?
Well, 2021 harvest was pretty rubbish up here. I don't know about the rest of the country, But yeah, it wasn't
There was
great.
certainly early frost did a lot of damage.
Early frost, very dry spring, just, everything was against us. So it was a bit of a struggle getting hold of the apples that we needed, but I went back to sort of scrabbling around on the floor beneath trees in obscure corners of fields, which I haven't done for a few years. So we got there in the end. And then there were lots of plans for 2021 that never happened because of various lockdowns. So up to now, I've only made one cider, which seems like a shame. So I've got more to make. Well, I've got more that's made, that's ready to be something.
It's not a. Is it a fruit cider?
It's not, no, but I might do that. My old prejudice against that has disappeared, and I'm now
interesting.
Saying
what, because of the tax thing?
Renaissance cider man. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be up for that.
Fantastic. It's a new year for new exploration. Kingsley, thank you so much for joining us here at the Nitral.
At the Nitrogen Cider Hotel.
The nitrates.
Maybe Nitro Cider. That will be the big
Gabe,
thing for 2022.
just say goodbye.
Okay. Kingsley, thank you very much for joining us here at the Neutral Cider Hotel. You've been a great guest. Thanks for giving us your insight. Have a lovely time pruning those trees up in lovely Thornborough, North Yorkshire. Cheers to you, my friend. Wholesale.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, man.
Well, there we go. Kingsley with some particularly forthright views there. Not necessarily agreeing with mine, which is never a pleasing thing. But again, every cider maker has a different insight on these things. That's why it's fascinating to talk to everybody. Not necessarily some of the monumentous kind of changes that some cider makers might potentially experience as a result of this, though. It'll be interesting. Certainly, the opportunity to grow seems to be something important here. The unexpected protection of that 7,000 litre duty exemption will obviously encourage him to be able to continue his enterprise. But not only that, with the small producer relief scheme, that he might be able to grow his business a bit more organically. That he might not have grown under sort of previous if that small producer discount didn't exist.
Yeah. And it's one where you listen to him talking about it and you look at kind of the industry. They seem like tiny, small ripples, but say if you're a small producer and you're kind of capped by that 7,000 litres, if that goes for you, and then you can produce 8, 9, 10, 11,000, then you're producing maybe a couple more ciders, like 2 or 3 a year, different ones within your range, or you're making more of the conventional ones in your product line, and then they're reaching maybe the same bottle shops, maybe a couple more, and then you start getting a scene where it bubbles out of that suddenly people can get access to the ciders that we're talking about, and then the new ones as well. And that's how scenes build, from that kind of just loose little bit of tax at the bottom. So it'll be interesting to see what makers of his scale do in the next 5 years.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that adding on to that as well, it will allow more keg for smaller producers. A
very, very good thing, of course.
Oh, of course it is. As long as they need to sort out the literage thing, don't they?
They do.
But that that, because I guess if you're staying under 7,000 litres and you're putting that into kegs, you're not going to have a lot of kegs, really. Keg has to be done in volume, and sub 7,000, that's not really going to work. Because if you're also going to have a small pack bottle and a 750 on offer, that's taking up a lot of your duty free cider, and kegs of the future. So,
would this tax change affect most of the cider makers that you discuss on this podcast? So that Oliver's, the Pilton, Little Pomona, all of those types, would it have a big impact on them?
The cool guys.
Yeah, all the hipsters.
I mean, everybody is going to be impacted. You know, the amount and the type of duty and how and when they pay their duty, that is all going to change. This is a monumental, complete shift. Is it going to be preferential? Is it going to be dependent upon the amount that you make, and also the alcohol content of what it is that you make, as to whether you are going to be overtly penalized for making a higher alcohol drink, but also whether you're going to be sufficiently small that you max out on the amount of discount that you get because you are a small producer. So everybody's going to be in a slightly different position. Of some might be slightly better off, some might be slightly worse off cash wise, some might be pretty much where they were previously. This is going to be something that'll have to play out, and we won't really know until a bit of time after it's been introduced.
I think the answer is yes, Scott. If you want to know, all those makers that you've mentioned who do like to, I think probably one of the main things, who like to play with other ingredients and other flavors would be a big thing. And I guess that maybe Little Pomona, Pilton have made the leap, obviously above 7,000, and are making a business out of it. But again, I think it'll allow them to grow on a scale that'll mean that they can gain access to areas and markets they might not previously be able to.
And also here I am giving my 2 cents on it, mainly from beer, but with craft beer, a big part of that were the people, the kind of auxiliary people. You had all the brewers who were home brewers who then just became business people from just proxy of doing it. But also you had all the people that were helping out, bottling, labeling and that, and they're creating the scene. And then it leaches out from them, basically keeping the conversation going, and there's more people drinking product X. The thing with cider is it's a lot of essentially small one-man businesses. And if any of them now are going from the 7,000 litres up and they get, say, someone part-time or a full-time member of staff, heaven forbid, but there are more people within the industry, and then there's more chance that it moves outward. So it's like, it's one of those where it's kind of, if it tips, it's going to tip dramatically. But if it stays the same size, it will benefit the smaller guys for just being an easy entrance into a bigger scale than they're at. But if that's then capped at the next cap, well, they're not going to expand past that anyway.
Got it.
Well, there we go. That is, whether you liked it or not, ladies and gentlemen, a full dedicated deep dive, in-depth rumination around the bowels of cider duty. There's lots to talk about, and so many potential permutations that could happen with this. Exactly what the impact will be is to be seen, and I think, as we were saying, that it, depending upon who you are and what you do, there could be opportunities, there could be challenges, but change is always a bit of a difficult thing, and no doubt we will always ask a bit of a tax question with cider makers that we get on future episodes of the Neutral Cider Hotel. All right then, well, let's put all that tax talk to bed for now, and instead we're going to get on to a very special tax-themed quiz. Now here at the Neutral Cider Hotel, it's the section you've all been waiting for.
Yes.
It's Gabe's great tax quiz. Tax doesn't have to be taxing. It can be fun.
Yes.
Oh my goodness me. So I have devised a very silly, five. Well, it's not that silly. It just is. Five question quiz.
It just is. Is it quite philosophical? Is it?
Can I ask one question? Why?
Because I said so. So I've got 5 questions here, and they are questions about tax, not necessarily all about cider tax. I couldn't find that many interesting questions about cider tax. I went on to broader tax, mostly, if not entirely, in a historical context. So anyway, it's just an opportunity to come up with some fun stuff. So I'm going to say 5 questions,
Okay.
and get Grant and Martyn to write down on their piece of paper their 5 answers, and we'll then see whether anybody actually gets the exact answers. And I might make up some stuff along the way that provides some half points if you get close or something like that. We'll see. As you can tell, I've given a lot of thought. Right. Question number 1.
God. Right.
In what year were the infamous cider riots that took place in the western parts of England, where there were effigies of the Prime Minister who introduced this cider bill hanging from posts in the town square, and where tax officers were thrown and jailed down mines, where there was general kind of pillaging. So, just a normal Friday night in Gloucester then. What year were the famous cider riots in the southwest of England?
I feel like the Tom Tit perched on the branch, looking down at the right answer. So,
Confident.
yeah. No, I'm making it up. But I wrote 4 numbers in sequence, and it felt like I was writing possessed. So either it's completely wrong or completely right.
Does it start with an 8? It's probably wrong if it starts with an 8.
No, it's 2022.
It's a premonition of what's to come.
Yesterday.
Ooh, interesting.
These tax increases have gone up. Oh, God.
So that's question number 1. Question number 2. Which European nation has the highest tax rate on a classic 5% ABV non-flavored cider? In Europe, which nation has the highest tax rate on a classic 5% alcohol, non-flavored, aka apple cider, within Europe? That's not European Union, that's just Europe.
Okay. Lots of room for banter here.
Absolutely.
Because we all know that the UK is no longer part of Europe.
Oh, for fuck.
We're in Europe, we're just not in the EU.
Right, let's not get
Come
into
on,
Brexit.
Scott.
We've already spent our own tax.
Yeah, that's. We'll save the Brexit episode for another time. Okay, so that was question number 2. Question number 3, and we're moving away from cider here. In Monopoly, how much do you pay if you land on income tax?
Oh.
I played a bit of Monopoly over Christmas. I was very bad. In Monopoly, how much do you pay if you land on income tax?
No, I'm going to change.
Which piece did you choose? What was your
I was the boot.
boot?
You look
Of
like a
course,
boot.
you were the boot.
No, do you know what? Not to maybe prison slang. I always thought you'd be like the iron.
What is the iron in prison slang? I want to know now. Maybe I don't. I don't think I was the iron. I'm pretty sure I was the boot.
Income tax.
So for all the Monopoly players out there, you will be shouting at your...
I know you are shouting.
I've just got to add something here. I was in the supermarket the other day.
Why?
And
It was a great story.
and they were selling the new Monopoly set. And obviously Monopoly, old enough game that doesn't need much reinvention. This new version has counterfeit notes. So half of the game is actually trying to find out who has real money. So not only have they added to the drama.
Really?
Yeah. It's like, have a look. I was like, surely this is not going to go well for
You hold
Christmas.
it up to the light and look for security features.
They give you a little glass so it comes up on it. But if someone gives you, say if you were to pay, I don't know, 1,000 in income tax and you gave someone 1,000 and then they went, hang on, 500 of this is counterfeit, you go to jail.
Is this the mega edition?
Honestly, I looked at it and I thought, I think you've done enough here, Monopoly.
Yeah. Anyway.
Number 4, Gabe.
Question number 4. Queen Elizabeth I reintroduced a beard tax that was first introduced by her father, King Henry VIII. The tax was applied to how many days' growth of beard?
Wow.
Queen Elizabeth I introduced or reintroduced a beard tax. On how many days' growth of beard would this tax be applied upon?
Do you know what? I had the date of this beard tax in a pub quiz I did.
No.
And yeah, I can't even remember it. So I know it exists, but
It doesn't matter though, does it? Because
no, what I'm
question.
saying is I'm trying to brag badly and failing.
so you know one of the wrong answers to this question.
Even, no.
I mean, that's
I don't
quite
even
a brag.
know. I don't.
Oh, you
even
can't
know
remember the wrong answer.
All I'm saying is, I'm not surprised that there's a beard tax.
I have got an answer.
Good.
I've got two
Levels
answers
of
for one of
confidence
them.
are high in the room here. You've got 2.
I've got 2 answers for one of them that I will cross it out when we come to the thing.
Okay.
Oh,
All right. Question number 5. Oh, hang on. I've lost my piece of paper. Oh, yeah. Which city had a tea party in 1773 by American colonists in protest of Britain imposing taxation without representation? Which USA city had a tea party in 1773 by colonists in protest of Britain's imposing taxation without representation?
Those are the lyrics to the Hamilton song, aren't they, Gabe? I think I've got the answer. So, how do you like them apples? There,
I've got that answer. Oh, fucking idiot.
Well,
Although I've really laid my cards out, haven't I?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Number 5, Grant, what you got? Tunisia.
Leicester.
Leicester. Yeah, you Leicester. What are you doing?
Tampa,
The old
Florida.
Leicester Tea Party.
Yeah. Santiago.
All right, and those are there is a tiebreaker prepared in the eventuality of there being a tie.
One each.
Which I think is possibly quite likely. So here we go. Question 1 was, in what year were the famous cider riots held in the western parts of England? And the survey says, what answers have we got?
Can you see? I don't want to show all my answers.
Just say it. No,
1971.
1971.
so we're doing closest answer.
I think we will do a closest for a half point. We'll do half point for closest.
So I said 1786.
Martyn is quite close. It's 1763.
Do you know why? Because you've asked this before, and it's because
was this
I've
the one
done
that
it
your
backwards.
dad?
No, so this was it for me last time you asked it, but it's basically they said, "I ain't fucking having that. I ain't doing that." So then the tax was passed on to the Americans in theory, and they were like, "Whoa, we best start a revolution." And obviously, 1776, New York City. So I should have gone before.
Well,
Should have gone before.
I thought it was
The 70s were a riot.
Well, I like it. There was the poll tax riots.
Well, that's it. I thought it was just
Brixton
everyone was
riots.
just rioting.
There were the cider riots. 3-day week. Let's have a fight.
So Gabe,
half
are
a
you
point.
awarding a point or half a point?
I am
or-
awarding Martyn a half point. Yes, Martyn. Well done.
Are you giving Grant any?
No. Okay.
God,
no-
Scott, I thought you'd do the sound. You just,
Oh, I see.
Oh, come on! You can't ask him to do the sound. He didn't do the sound, so he doesn't. The sound doesn't happen.
you got,
No,
it's even funnier that just hung in the air.
exactly, and you ruined it.
All right, number
Okay.
2.
Question number 2. Which European nation has the highest tax on a classic 5% non-flavoured cider? What nation have we gone for?
I said Sweden.
Martyn says Sweden. Grant says
Iceland.
you are both incorrect.
Go on.
The correct answer is Finland.
Finland.
See where you
Ooh.
were going with that in terms of your expensive taxation Scandinavian thinking. So you were in the broad. Sweden actually had the second
Oh, come on.
highest taxation rate. If the question was who had the second highest taxation rate, you would have won.
Yeah, if the question was different, the answer would have been different. Yeah, I get that.
Exactly. So no points there. In Monopoly, how much do you pay if you land on income tax?
Do you know what, Grant? I don't know about you. I had 2 answers down for this, and I crossed one out. Is this what you crossed your 2 answers out for?
No, I had Norway for question 2. That I crossed out.
So I'm going to tell you mine. I crossed out 250, and I wrote 500.
Martyn, you are
Way
incorrect.
I had £100.
You are incorrect.
Oh, I thought you were right then. I was like,
200?
oh my God.
Is it 200?
It is 200 quid,
Do you know-
bucks, euros, yen, or could also have been 10% of your assets.
10%.
Oh.
I'm not sure whether it's like which one is more or less, possibly.
So I'll give myself a point for that.
You give yourself a point there, then, producer Scott. Well done. Okay. Cool.
Well done, Scott.
All right, Scott's in.
So I'm
I
leading
need to
right
get this
now.
right. I need to get
You
this
are
right.
in the lead.
So I'm in the lead right now with 1 full point.
I
All
need
right.
to get this right.
Okay, question number 4. Queen Elizabeth the First reintroduced a beard tax on how many days worth of growth? How many days warranted a bit of tax? Grant.
I've got a question about this tax. So
Hang on, you can't do an answer with a question.
Question. Wait.
was it much like the current cider tax in that you didn't pay any tax on the previous for however many days it was, or did you pay tax on each additional day? How did it work, Gabe? I'd like to know.
This is a good set of questions to which I obviously don't know the answer.
Okay, my answer is 5
There we go.
days.
You are incorrect.
Oh, fuck.
Do you know what I put? I went for Craig David, 7 days.
Good logical thinking. But much like Craig David, you are wrong.
Wow.
Sorry, Craig David, and all of your fans.
Please come on season 2.
If you want to come on the show, yeah.
Hotel. You and Daniel Bedingfield with your denim jeans up in was that the link, Grant?
Daniel, yeah, we're pals. What you took? What? Yeah. What do you want to know? What do you want to know about me and
Are we
Danny
going to
B?
get Daniel on the show?
I thought there was a denim link there or something like that. You saw him in double denim or something like that. Or am I?
You were wearing triple denim in that photo.
And you know what? A lot of people won't realise about that photo. The third piece of denim was not my shirt.
Pants.
Pants? Denim pants? That's going to chafe a bit.
Denim hat?
Socks?
Denim condom?
Trainers.
Shoes, denim shoes.
Denim shoes. Oh, God.
Nobody would have guessed that. So what is the correct answer, Gabe?
Oh, I forgot what the question was.
I was going to carry on. I was like, tell us about the denim.
The answer is 14 days.
2
Martyn,
weeks.
I see you're thinking 2 weeks worth. So you got a bit of
Yeah,
leeway.
you got a bit of time.
Well,
Yeah.
what,
And then you had to. Did you have to get rid of it all, or?
I believe so. I will. Do you know what, Grant? Just for you,
think
I will come
should have
back
done
on
more
to next
research. Like,
episode.
you can't come on an episode like this and talk about.
I'm
beer
not being
tax.
funny though. If I didn't shave, say if the taxman comes over and he goes bow, 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 and looks at me and says, "Hang on, we're taxing you," and I go, "But I shaved 5 days ago." How can they measure hirsutedness?
I don't know. It's just a question. Just.
Honestly, I hate the Queen, and I think, like Barney, I'm pro-abolishing. We should abolish the monarchy. So fuck them. Gabe, number 5.
Okay. And last, it was in which American city was there a tea party in 1773 by American colonists? Colonists? That's not a word.
By the American colons.
By the American colonists.
The kind of
in
linguists.
protest of Britain's imposing taxation without representation. What city was it, Martyn?
I put, I'll try to do the accent, Boston.
Boston. And Grant?
Boston.
Boston is the correct answer, of course. It is a Boston Tea Party. A question as requested by producer Scott to get a bit of Americana in there.
I was thinking you were going to dig a little deeper than just the city, but okay.
Well,
What?
it was going to be...
How deep you want to go?
Which senator passed the
Which river?
Here we go, yeah.
I
Which
was hoping
wharf
for
was
we
it
would get
in,
some-
Producer Scott, come on.
We would get some American forefather impressions with whatever question you asked.
Right. So, Scott, like you've just, go on, fuck it, just ask what you want. Just, I'll provide. Just say. What do you want?
He's on the...
What did Ben Franklin think of the Boston Tea Party?
Hang on, why has Kermit arrived?
I'm quite indifferent to the whole scenario. I don't even drink tea. I'm more a coffee person than me.
Oh, boy.
So, Gabe, who won?
Tiebreaker. Tiebreaker. Let's do that tiebreaker.
What do you mean tiebreaker? I've won. Half
No,
and
I've
one.
won, technically.
What?
Well, at the very least, you and I have tied.
You can't win a question that you phoned in.
Technically, we've all lost because that was a terrible quiz, wasn't it? I'm really sorry.
That was a terrible
I enjoyed
impression.
it. I enjoyed it.
Do your tiebreaker. Take winner, take all.
Oh, okay.
can't-
Winner take
you
all
can't-
with the...
I've scored a goal. I've like put it in between the two jumpers. I've like literally kicked it through.
What
Goal.
it didn't actually.
And then this
You didn't
American
really.
kid has just said penalty about it. Oh,
No, you
fucking
didn't.
go
You
on
did-
then.
You just kicked it a bit nearer the goal than the other person, and quite close to
Exactly,
the goal.
exactly.
It hit the post. So actually,
Well,
I
you
take
can't
it back.
rescind your
I have.
refereeing.
Hey, yeah, I can. I'm the boss. I can do what I want.
Honestly, I
You've
wanna
lost your
kick
half
your
point.
fucking head in. Go on.
Whining little bitch. Right.
Wow.
Tiebreaker scenario.
I honestly don't know if I want to be involved in this anymore.
Now you know how I felt back in episode, whatever it was, when you were terribly, terribly mean to me. So, in Britain, a window tax, a tax on windows, was introduced into England and Wales, not Scotland. No need for windows, too dark. In what year was the window tax introduced?
Is there still a window tax?
There can't be.
No. The window tax.
Could be.
Window tax. There's no way we would know if there's a window tax.
Well, what is the window tax, though?
So the window tax, it was introduced in this year.
Don't
I'm not
say-
going to tell you. Won't do that. It was
In 1966, the year of the windows. Fucking hell.
It was assessed as a flat property tax plus a tax based on the number of windows that a home had. As a result, some people bricked up their windows, and new buildings sometimes were designed with fewer windows. It was the more windows it had, the greater demonstration of wealth you had, basically. So if you were
that's still the case right now. They should bring that fucking back in. Because
these guys looking at sky roofs going like, oh, you fucking
exactly. Oh, let's just make the whole front of it glass. Well, you're gonna have to pay for that, mate.
I've got these bastards from the 1500s in my greenhouse. Like, you're a fucking prick.
1500s, you think? Oh, right, okay.
Well, it's got to be early, isn't it? This does. All right. So, Gabe, are we going closest?
We're going closest. Absolutely. In what year was the infamous window tax introduced into England and Wales?
I'm going to go on the dot then to...
What say you, Grant?
1788.
1788. And Martyn?
I've put... You can't see.
No.
I've put 1700.
1700.
I thought you'd go in at the 1500. So I thought if I go for the other end of the Middle Ages, I don't know anymore.
Your historical timings are poor, shall I say?
Well, you wait until the end of time, because that 1700 will be the middle.
You want me to wait until the end of time? For what?
The windows are fucking huge at the end of time.
Jesus.
Everything's made out of glass. We better bring that tax in.
Aye, nothing is. The whole house is a window, so you don't actually pay any tax. That's one way
He's not
around
even
it.
using marks at all. He's just on windows.
Tax me for one window because my house is glass. That's the way around it.
Are you drinking cider out of a glass, son? 20%.
It's a window.
Have you got the answers?
I do have the answer, and there is some justice in the world because Martyn was closest. The year was 1696. You were only 4 years out, Martyn. Your knowledge of the latter Middle Ages is rather good.
Middle Ages.
Oh, dear.
Bullshit.
Well
Bullshit.
done. Gabe's great tax quiz, therefore, comes to an end.
Admittedly, I'm happy. This is the score I had before this tiebreaker. So
No, that's not true. You
get an extra point.
Now
yeah,
you have
but I
a
would have
point.
won with a half point. So you've the tiebreaker is if we're at the even score.
You sound very ungrateful.
Well, when you're this good at middle age history.
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, I guess maybe I would be extremely grateful because I'd had it stolen from me so many times in the past that I'd be phoning mum right now, even though it's 11:30 at night.
But Grant, I will say you had many given to you for the comedic effect of watching Gabe suffer. So swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, but that's because every time I won, the episode got canned, got fucking binned. So,
and that is down to Gabe's internet. So Gabe's internet is the real winner tonight, as it has kept us connected and together. So thank you, Gabe.
My pleasure. And you know what? It's not just my internet as well. Very largely, it's that of Barny Butterfield. Congratulations, Barny.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for finding some internet that enabled you to come on to the show. And, you know, that does wrap things up here at the Neutral Cider Hotel. Big thanks to Barny and to also Kingsley Ash as well for sharing their perspectives on, the changes to British cider taxation upcoming. We hope that you, our dear listeners, have enjoyed listening about tax as well. And the hope that Martyn and Grant have enjoyed this wonderful tax quiz that has participated, and hopefully Grant's not too bitter, and Martyn, just not too bitter either. So if you enjoy our podcast and want to help, please do spread the word about the Neutral Cider Hotel. Tell all your friends about it. Maybe you've been doing that already because we're getting some big numbers, looking pretty good. And encourage them all to listen. You can also follow, rate, and review us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. It really, really, really does help. And please find and follow us on social media. We're at Neutral Cider Hotel on Instagram, Facebook, Neutral Cider Pod on Twitter. And as always, you can visit us on our website to listen online and share episodes at neutralciderhotel.com. Lastly, please reach out and leave us a voicemail. Gosh, we haven't had many of those for a while. Have we still got the connection? Are we still paying rates?
It's up.
Wow, amazing. All right.
Still paying.
Leave us a voicemail message with your questions or comments at speakpipe.com/Neutral Cider Hotel. What do you think about cider tax, or indeed anything? But until next time, everybody, from now until the end of time, please stay safe. Thanks for listening, and what's it?